Every so often a sequel arrives that doesn't just continue a legacy but completely dominates the conversation around gaming. And right now in 2026, that game is Slay the Spire 2. If you've been paying even a little attention to the gaming world lately, you've probably noticed how quickly this early access release has exploded in popularity. On day one alone, it pulled in around 177,000 players, an incredible number considering it launched on the same day as other major titles like Marathon. That kind of attention doesn't happen by accident, and after spending a significant amount of time with the early access build, it's easy to understand why players are already hooked. The moment you start playing, you get that dangerous feeling that defines the best roguelikes, the urge to do just one more run, then another, then another. Before you know it, hours have passed, and you're still climbing the spire, trying to perfect a strategy that almost worked the last time. At its core, Slay the Spire 2 stays surprisingly faithful to what made the original game so beloved. You still climb the mysterious spire, battling monsters, collecting cards, building powerful decks, and preparing for increasingly difficult bosses as you ascend through different acts. The mechanics are familiar, but the developers have expanded the formula in ways that make the experience feel fresh rather than repetitive. The energy-based card system returns, allowing you to play multiple cards per turn, as long as you have the energy to support it. That freedom opens the door to incredible synergies and moments where a perfectly planned sequence of cards can completely turn the tide of a battle. Instead of the slow pacing that some turn-based games suffer from, Slay the Spire 2 embraces controlled chaos. You're constantly improvising, thinking several moves ahead, while also reacting to the randomness of the cards in your hand and the unpredictable behavior of enemies. Every decision feels meaningful, and every mistake feels like something you could learn from. That learning process is where the game really sinks its hooks into you. Every failed run makes you ask questions. What could I have done differently? Was that the wrong moment to play that combo? Would a different deck strategy have saved me? The cards themselves are incredibly varied, and the developers have added even more options in this sequel. Some familiar cards return with tweaks and adjustments, while entirely new cards introduce mechanics that dramatically change how you build your deck. There are also card enchantments that enhance abilities and afflictions that enemies can apply to sabotage your strategy, forcing you to constantly adapt. The result is a system where no two runs feel exactly the same, and experimentation becomes part of the fun. You'll often start a run with a rough idea of a strategy, only for the game's RNG to completely derail it halfway through and force you to reinvent your entire approach on the fly. One of the most exciting additions to Slay the Spire 2 is the introduction of multiplayer co-op, and honestly this might be the feature that transforms the experience the most. Being able to climb the spire with friends adds a whole new layer of strategy and chaos. Suddenly you're not just thinking about your own cards and combos, but also how your deck interacts with your teammates' strategies. The game introduces co-op specific cards and mechanics that allow players to support each other in creative ways, and planning turns together becomes a fascinating tactical conversation. At first we were worried that playing with multiple players might make the game easier, but the reality is the opposite. The challenge remains intense, but the complexity grows in a way that feels incredibly satisfying. Some enemies scale with the number of players, and boss encounters can become absolute chaos when multiple decks are firing off abilities at once. Instead of simplifying the game, multiplayer makes every encounter feel bigger and more unpredictable, and it turns the experience into something social as well. You'll find yourself discussing strategies and card combinations even outside the game, which is something few roguelikes manage to achieve. Another major highlight of the sequel is the introduction of new playable characters, including the mysterious Necrobinder and the cosmic-powered Regent. Each brings entirely new mechanics that drastically change how the game is played. The Necrobinder, for example, focuses on necromancy and summons a reanimated companion named Osti, who can attack enemies, absorb damage, or be sacrificed and revived repeatedly. Her gameplay revolves around managing this life-death cycle, while also applying a unique debuff called Doom that can instantly kill enemies once it reaches their current health. The Regent, on the other hand, uses cosmic energy and a resource called Stars to power devastating abilities, while commanding small minions from his throne. These characters feel wildly different from each other, and from returning favorites like the Ironclad, Silent and Defect, who also return with completely reworked card pools and new mechanics of their own. Visually, Slay the Spire 2 also gets a noticeable upgrade, while still keeping the quirky charm that fans love. The art style feels refreshed with smoother animations and more expressive enemy designs. Some enemies move in surprisingly creative ways, and the new animations add personality to each encounter. Cards themselves look better too, with refined artwork, and even some full art designs that really stand out during gameplay. Combined with the eerie yet charming aesthetic that defined the first game, the visual update makes the Spire feel both familiar and strangely new. But perhaps the most important factor behind the game's success is its difficulty. Slay the Spire 2 is not an easy game, and that's exactly why it works so well. You will fail runs frequently. You will get sent back to the bottom of the Spire more times than you can count. Yet instead of feeling frustrating, those failures feel motivating. Every run becomes its own little story, a strategic experiment that either succeeds spectacularly or collapses in an unexpected way. The randomness of the cards, relics, events, and enemies ensures that the game never feels predictable. Even the map itself introduces variations, allowing players to choose between different world states before starting a run, each filled with unique enemies, environments, and challenges. The Spire feels alive in a way that keeps pulling you back for another attempt. There's also a surprising amount of lore being added in this sequel. The game takes place roughly 1,000 years after the original, introducing mysterious beings known as Ancients who have watched the Spire's cycles of destruction and rebirth. Characters like the well-known Meow return to offer blessings at the start of your climb, while new figures provide powerful relics and story fragments. As you continue playing run after run, you unlock pieces of a timeline that slowly reveals more about the history of the Spire and the characters exploring it. It's a subtle narrative system, but it adds depth to the world and gives long-term players something to uncover beyond just mastering the gameplay. Now, it's important to remember that Slay the Spire 2 is currently in early access, which means the version we're playing right now is only the beginning. Megacrit has already hinted at more content on the way, including additional acts, enemies, relics, events, and adjustments based on player feedback. Even in its current state, though, the game already feels incredibly polished and dangerously addictive. It's one of those rare games that stays in your mind even when you're not playing it. You find yourself thinking about new deck combinations, wondering how a certain relic might interact with a card you discovered earlier, or imagining how a different strategy could have saved your last run. Our honest opinion after spending time with the game is simple: Slay the Spire 2 has all the potential to become one of the defining roguelikes of this generation. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it doesn't need to. Instead, it refines and expands everything that made the first game legendary, while introducing enough new mechanics to keep both veterans and newcomers completely engaged. With hundreds of thousands of players already diving into the Spire during early access, it's clear that the game has struck a chord with the community. If the developers continue supporting it with meaningful updates and new content, this could easily grow into one of the most influential strategy roguelikes ever made. And honestly, that's the best compliment we can give it. Slay the Spire 2 is the kind of game that quietly steals your time without you noticing. The kind where losing a run doesn't make you quit, but instead makes you immediately want to start another one. The Spire keeps calling you back, and somehow you keep answering. But of course, those are our thoughts. What do you think about Slay the Spire 2 so far? Have you tried the early access version, or are you waiting for the full release? Let us know in the comments and share your experiences climbing the Spire. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload, and support us on Patreon to get access to exclusive premium gaming content. You can also visit our website for more news, reviews, and updates from the gaming world.